Dear learners, welcome back to WSE True Stories, where English learning becomes an unforgettable adventure. In this episode, we bring you the incredible life of a woman who redefined what was possible, not just for science, but for all of humanity. Her name was Marie Curie. A scientist, a pioneer, and the first woman to ever win 2 Nobel Prizes in 2 different fields. But this is not just a story of science. It is a story of breaking barriers, of quiet strength and bold resilience. Of a woman who carried the weight of the world's doubt on her shoulders, and turned it into light. Through today's story, not only will you practice your English listening and vocabulary in a natural and meaningful way, but you will also find yourself inspired by one of the most powerful examples of determination and purpose in modern history. Get ready to journey through childhood dreams, relentless struggle, profound discovery, and the deeply human story of love, loss, and legacy. This is Marie Curie. And her life might just change the way you think about courage. Let's begin. She was born as Maria Sklodowska on a cold November day in 1867 in Warsaw, Poland, a land shadowed by foreign rule. At the time, Poland was under Russian occupation, and Polish culture, language, and education were being slowly erased. To be born into such a climate meant inheriting a quiet resistance. For Maria, this resistance lived in the walls of her home, in the books she read, and in the language her family stubbornly continued to speak, Polish, not Russian. Her father, the Ladislaw, was a teacher of physics and mathematics, and her mother, Bronislawa, was the headmistress of a girls' school. It was a household built on learning, discipline, and quiet pride. But they were also a family marked by tragedy. When Maria was just 10 years old, she lost her eldest sister Zofia to typhus. 2 years later, her beloved mother died of tuberculosis. The pain ran deep, and it planted a kind of seriousness in Maria's heart that never really left. Even as a child, Maria had a mind like a magnifying glass, sharp, focused, and always searching. She was a top student, hungry to learn more, and often stayed up late reading anything she could get her hands on. But the doors of higher education were shut for women in Russian-occupied Poland. Maria couldn't attend university simply because of her gender. It seemed like a full stop at the end of a sentence that hadn't even been written yet. But she didn't accept it. Instead, she joined the Flying University, a secret network of underground classes taught in Polish, by Polish scholars, for those who refused to be erased. There, Maria found herself surrounded by rebels of the mind, people who risked everything to pursue knowledge in a time of suppression. It was dangerous. It was bold. It was perfect for someone like her. But dreams need more than courage, they need money. And her family didn't have it. So Maria made a pact with her sister Bronia. Maria would work as a governess to fund Bronia's medical studies in Paris. Then, when Bronia was established, she would help Maria do the same. For 5 long years, Maria taught the children of wealthy families in the countryside, reading, writing, and silently burying her own desires while others chased theirs. It was during these years that something shifted in her. While outwardly she played the part of a polite, well-mannered tutor, inwardly she began to harden. She was learning patience, learning to observe, and most of all, learning to wait. It was in this quiet season of personal sacrifice that Maria's will was forged. Eventually, the promise was kept. Bronia invited her to Paris, and in 1891, at the age of 24, Maria Sklodowska boarded a train and left Poland behind, alone, determined, and stepping into a world that had no place prepared for her. Paris in the late 19th century was dazzling and brutal. The City of Lights was alive with innovation, ideas, and intellectual passion. It was also a city with little sympathy for women, especially foreign women, in science. Maria enrolled at the Sorbonne, adopting the name Marie to better blend in. She studied physics and mathematics, often skipping meals to save money, wrapping herself in every piece of clothing she owned to survive the cold, and living in a tiny attic apartment that barely kept the rain out. But she was in heaven. For the first time, she was exactly where she wanted to be, surrounded by books, equations, and people who took science seriously. She graduated first in her class in physics, and second in mathematics. This alone was remarkable for a woman of her background. But she wasn't finished yet. And then, as fate would have it, science brought love into her life. She met Pierre Curie, a quiet, brilliant physicist who was fascinated by her intensity and vision. He was unlike the others, supportive, humble, and willing to walk beside her rather than in front of her. They married in 1895, and for a while, they were just Marie and Pierre, scientists, lovers, equals. Together, they embarked on one of the most important scientific journeys of the 20th century. They began studying the mysterious phenomenon of radioactivity, a term Marie herself would coin. The work was grueling, crushing tons of pitchblende rock, boiling it down, and analyzing it piece by piece to isolate unseen elements. Day after day, year after year, their lab became a world of dust, smoke, and discovery. And then, a breakthrough. They discovered not one, but two new elements, polonium, named after Marie's beloved homeland, Poland, and radium. Their work shook the scientific community. In 1903, the Nobel Prize in Physics was awarded to Marie and Pierre Curie, along with Henri Becquerel. Marie Curie became the first woman to ever win a Nobel Prize. But even in celebration, prejudice followed. Some in the Academy questioned whether she had truly done equal work. Her name was often placed after her husband's, and reporters described her as his assistant. The world didn't know how to deal with a woman who demanded to be seen as a mind, not just a wife. But this was only the beginning. An even greater challenge, and an even deeper test of her spirit, was about to arrive. The world had just begun to recognize her brilliance. Yet, the light of discovery always comes with a shadow. Fame, for Marie and Pierre Curie, was not wealth. Their laboratory was still a leaky shed, with broken windows and primitive tools. Their clothes smelled of chemicals. Their skin burned from exposure. And still, they pressed on. Marie was not chasing medals or praise, she was chasing truth. She wanted to understand the hidden forces inside matter itself, to unlock the mysteries of the atom. But behind the thrill of progress was a growing threat, one they could not see, and would not yet fully understand. Radiation. They handled glowing samples with bare hands. They inhaled the dust. They had no idea of the danger. But it was already beginning to leave its mark. In 1904, Marie gave birth to her second daughter, Eve. Life seemed full, two beautiful children, groundbreaking science, and a partnership the world admired. But just 2 years later, in 1906, tragedy came without warning. Pierre Curie was crossing a busy Paris street on a rainy afternoon when he slipped beneath a horse-drawn carriage. His skull was crushed. He died instantly. Marie, just 38 years old, lost not only her husband but her dearest collaborator, her soulmate in science and spirit. The world offered its condolences. The Academy mourned him. But inside Marie's heart, something shattered. The man who had believed in her when no one else did, the man who made her feel seen, was gone. For days, she was silent. She buried herself in his clothes. She wrote in her diary as if he were still alive. And then, slowly, she stood up. Not with rage, not with tears, but with resolve. Marie Curie returned to the laboratory. She took up Pierre's teaching post at the Sorbonne, becoming the first woman to ever teach there. Imagine the scene, a hall filled with male students, watching a slight, pale woman with deep eyes walk to the podium. She did not speak of her grief. She opened her notes and began the lecture exactly where Pierre had left off. This was her silent rebellion. Not in protest, but in perseverance. But the years ahead would test her in even harsher ways. She was awarded a second Nobel Prize in 1911, this time in chemistry, for her continued work with radium and polonium. She was the first person in history to win 2 Nobel Prizes, in 2 different sciences. Her name should have been etched in golden letters. But instead, the press turned on her. Rumors spread about a relationship between Marie and physicist Paul Langevin, who was estranged from his wife. The affair, real or exaggerated, became a scandal. Reporters camped outside her house. She was called a foreign seductress, a homewrecker, and far worse. It wasn't her science they attacked, it was her womanhood. At one point, an angry mob gathered outside her home. She and her daughters had to hide in a friend's attic. Just days later, she was told she'd won her second Nobel Prize. They asked her not to attend the ceremony. Too much scandal, too much attention. But Marie Curie refused to stay silent or ashamed. She traveled to Stockholm and accepted the prize, calm, composed, and unbroken. She stood not just as a scientist, but as a woman who had dared to live fully, love deeply, and pursue truth, no matter the cost. Behind her quiet demeanor was steel. And steel does not bend easily. Yet, even steel can be worn down. Radiation, her life's work, was taking a toll on her body. She suffered from fatigue, vision problems, and chronic pain. Her hands burned. Her bones weakened. Still, she worked. She continued her experiments, trained new scientists, and raised 2 daughters with fierce love. Then, the world changed again. In 1914, war erupted across Europe. The Great War, as it would be called, shattered nations and took millions of lives. Marie could not fight in the trenches. But she found her own battlefield, in the hospitals. She realized that X-ray technology, still in its infancy, could save lives. If doctors could see bullets and broken bones without cutting open bodies, they could perform safer surgeries. But France had no mobile X-ray units. So, she built them. With her teenage daughter Irene by her side, Marie trained herself in radiology. She learned to drive. She raised funds. She designed and deployed over 20 mobile X-ray vans, petites Curies, as they came to be known. Then she drove one to the front lines herself. Imagine her there, amid the mud, the blood, the chaos of war, a Nobel Prize winner in a uniform, guiding soldiers through pain, guiding doctors through uncertainty. No lab. No glory. Just service. The war years exhausted her, but they also revealed something even more powerful than scientific genius: compassion. In her darkest moments, when the world turned on her, when her health declined, when grief threatened to swallow her, Marie Curie chose not bitterness, but purpose. She transformed suffering into service, pain into perseverance. And still, the work was not done. Her dedication continued long after the war. She founded the Radium Institute in Paris, training a new generation of scientists. Her daughter Irene would follow in her footsteps, later winning her own Nobel Prize in chemistry, continuing the family's legacy of discovery and courage. But the years of exposure could not be undone. Marie's health continued to deteriorate. She grew frail. Her vision dimmed. Yet even in her final years, she continued to write, to teach, to dream. She passed away in 1934, from complications likely caused by radiation exposure, though at the time, it still wasn't fully understood. Marie Curie died as she had lived, quietly, with dignity, in service of something greater than herself. When the world said goodbye to Marie Curie in 1934, it lost not just a scientist, but a symbol. A woman who had defied the boundaries of gender, class, and even nature itself. Her discoveries had changed the world, yes, but more than that, her example had awakened something deeper in the human spirit. She had lived in a time when women were told not to dream too big. When universities barred them. When they were asked to stay silent, stay modest, stay home. But Marie Curie did not raise her voice, she raised her vision. She showed the world that intelligence has no gender, that perseverance has no accent, and that passion, when guided by purpose, is a force no barrier can hold back. Her achievements remain etched into the very fabric of science. The discovery of polonium and radium opened a new era in physics and chemistry. These elements helped lay the foundation for the field of nuclear science, which would eventually lead to groundbreaking medical treatments, from cancer therapies to sterilization procedures. It also gave humanity a powerful, and at times dangerous, new understanding of the atom. The atomic age was born from the work she began. But her influence didn't stop in the laboratory. She was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize. The first person to win 2 Nobel Prizes. And the only person in history to win Nobel Prizes in 2 different scientific fields, physics and chemistry. And yet, she never patented her discoveries. She never sought riches. She believed knowledge belonged to everyone. She gave the world her brilliance, and asked for nothing in return. The Radium Institute she founded became a center of excellence in medical research, advancing treatments, and saving lives for decades. Her daughter Irene Joliot-Curie carried on her legacy, winning a Nobel Prize with her husband for their work in artificial radioactivity. 2 generations of brilliance, built on sacrifice, grit, and the fire of curiosity. But beyond the numbers, the awards, the institutions, Marie Curie's true legacy is the example she left behind. She showed us what it means to be resilient. She showed us what it means to face pain, not with fear, but with purpose. She showed us that the pursuit of truth requires sacrifice, but gives meaning in return. Her name is now written in history books, etched in stone, engraved on university buildings. But perhaps her greatest impact is not what she discovered, but what she inspired. She inspired women, long shut out of the sciences, to pick up lab coats and step into classrooms once closed to them. She inspired doctors and nurses who use X-rays and radiation to heal the sick. She inspired generations of students to believe that knowledge is not a luxury, it is a birthright. And she inspired every person who has ever faced rejection, poverty, grief, or prejudice to know that with courage and perseverance, even the smallest voice can leave an echo through time. And so, dear learner, we arrive at the end of our story, but perhaps it is only the beginning of yours. Marie Curie's life is more than a tale of discovery. It is a journey of resilience, love, and undying commitment to the pursuit of truth. And if there is one lesson we carry with us from her journey, it is this: true strength is quiet. True genius is humble. And true greatness is not what you take, but what you give. She gave the world knowledge. She gave science new eyes. And she gave us a symbol of what one determined soul can achieve. Let this story remind you, your journey matters. Whether you're learning English, pursuing a dream, or simply trying to find your place in the world, never let doubt silence your potential. You don't need to be famous. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be brave enough to begin. So, take inspiration from Marie Curie. Embrace your curiosity. Hold on to your purpose. And step forward, because the world still needs your light. Thank you for joining us on this unforgettable journey through the life of Marie Curie. If her story moved you, please share it with others. Let her courage live on in conversations, in classrooms, and in the hearts of learners like you around the world. Don't forget to like this video if it inspired you, leave a comment about what part of her story touched you most, and subscribe for more powerful true stories like this, stories that feed your soul and your English skills. Until next time, keep learning, keep dreaming, and remember: greatness begins in silence, grows with courage, and lives forever in those who dare to believe. Goodbye for now.